For years, Hank Haney looked like the safest kind of man in golf. Not a celebrity, not a rebel, not a headline hunter, a teacher. A man with a trained eye, a quiet voice, and the patience to watch the same motion again and again until a flaw revealed itself. In a sport obsessed with control, that made him valuable. Golf does not forgive chaos. Every grip, every turn, every inch of balance matters. Great players spend their lives trying to remove noise from the body. Great coaches are hired to hear the noise before anyone else can. Hank Haney built his name in that world. Long before the public connected him to scandal, lawsuits, or radio controversy, he had already earned respect as one of the serious instructors in American golf. Players went to him not for entertainment but for answers. His reputation came from work. Repetition, diagnosis, trust. And trust was the word that would later make everything heavier. Because for a coach, trust is not decoration. It is the job. When Tiger Woods brought Haney into his circle, the scale changed instantly. This was not just another player. This was the most watched athlete in the sport, a man whose swing had become public property, even though the life behind it remained fiercely guarded. To coach Tiger was to stand near a machine built out of talent, money, fear, discipline, secrecy, and myth. Haney did not stand in the center of that machine. But Haney stood close enough to see the work before the trophy, close enough to understand the body before the press conference, close enough to hear what never reached the microphone. For the public, that closeness looked like honor. For Tiger, it required faith. For Haney, it became the credential that followed him everywhere. At first, the story was clean. Hank Haney was the respected teacher helping the greatest golfer alive stay dangerous. Between 2004 and 2010, Tiger kept winning, kept carrying the sport, kept bending every tournament around his presence. Haney's name rose with that success. No crowd chanted for the swing coach. No child copied his walk down the fairway. Still, inside golf, people understood what the role meant. Standing beside Tiger during those years was not a small thing. It gave Haney authority that almost no instructor could claim. He had worked inside the Tiger era. That sentence alone could sell lessons, books, interviews, television. It also came with a burden. A person invited into a private room does not only learn technique, he learns temperament, he learns rhythms, he sees the athlete before the mask settles into place. Most of those details are never meant to travel. In 2010, the coaching relationship ended. No public explosion, no courtroom, no dramatic farewell. A coach stepped away, a champion moved forward. Golf absorbed the news and kept turning. From a distance, it looked finished. 2 years later, the silence broke. Hank Haney published The Big Miss, My Years Coaching Tiger Woods. The title sounded almost surgical, a phrase from golf, but also something larger. A mistake, a gap, a thing not struck cleanly. For readers, the promise was irresistible. This was not a reporter piecing together rumors from outside the ropes. This was a former coach opening the door from inside the practice ground. A man who had watched Tiger not as a fan but as part of the operation. Haney's side described the book as fair and honest, a record of history, a look at one of the most important athletes in modern sport from someone who had been there. Tiger Woods saw it differently. He called the book unprofessional. Very disappointing. Those words did not sound like routine media irritation. They sounded personal. Tiger said Haney had been trusted. Not merely hired. Not simply consulted. Trusted. One word changed the charge. Trust. A book can be accurate and still feel like a violation. A memory can be true and still not belong entirely to the person telling it. A coach can claim history while a former player hears betrayal. That was the first public fracture. Not a legal one. A moral one. No judge could define the boundary cleanly. No press conference could answer the question everyone felt but rarely said out loud. What does a teacher owe the student after the relationship ends? Where does honesty stop and exposure begin? How much of greatness belongs to the athlete, and how much belongs to the people who helped build it? Golf moved on, at least publicly. Haney continued teaching. Television gave him a new shape. On the Haney Project, he became more than an instructor in the shadows. Celebrity students arrived with broken swings and famous faces. Charles Barkley, Ray Romano, Michael Phelps. The lesson T became a set. Diagnosis became entertainment. That version of Haney was easier to watch. Calm, experienced, useful. A man fixing flaws, while the camera enjoyed the struggle. Yet the book remained attached to him. It did not end his career. It did not erase his achievements. It did something quieter. It changed the way his access was remembered. Before the big miss, proximity to Tiger made Haney look important. After publication, the same proximity raised a different question. Had he been a witness? Or had he crossed a line? Years passed, with that question sitting under the surface. Not always visible, never fully gone. May 2019 brought it back. On SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio, Haney discussed the U.S. Women's Open. According to court records and media reports, he predicted a Korean winner, said he could not name several LPGA players, and suggested the winner might be named Lee. His co-host noted there were multiple Lees. The reaction came quickly. Critics heard the remarks as dismissive toward women's golf and offensive toward Korean players. Michelle Wee West publicly condemned them. LPGA leadership responded. Coverage spread across sports media. What may have been intended as a casual radio bit was no longer being treated casually. Haney apologized. An apology, however, does not always control the meaning of the original words. SiriusXM suspended him. At that point, the controversy had its own facts, its own people affected, and its own consequences. Women's golf deserved to be discussed on its own terms. Korean players were not props in a joke. LPGA athletes had reason to respond directly. For a moment, the story belonged there. Radio remarks. Backlash. Apology. Suspension. A familiar, modern sequence. Tiger Woods made it older. Asked about Haney, Tiger did not defend his former coach. He did not search for a softer angle. He said Haney deserved it. A short answer. Almost plain. But plain words can carry old weight. That sentence did not land like a fresh reaction to a broadcast segment. It sounded stored, as if the radio controversy had provided an occasion for something that had been waiting since the book. Suddenly, 2019 was no longer sealed off from 2012. The LPGA scandal had opened a door, and behind it stood Tiger Woods, the big miss, and the unresolved question of trust. Haney answered Tiger by turning the criticism back toward him. He questioned Tiger's moral authority, pointing toward Woods' own public scandals involving women years earlier. What began as a debate over comments about women's golf became another public exchange between two men whose relationship had already been damaged. This is where the story changes texture. A stranger criticizing Haney would have been one thing. Tiger was not a stranger. He was the former student, the man whose career had given Haney his most famous credential, the man who had already said, years earlier, that Haney had disappointed him. Public memory does not separate those moments neatly, it stacks them. A book, a rebuke, a radio scandal, another rebuke, a response, a lawsuit. By the time Haney sued the PGA Tour, the conflict had moved into a more formal space. His side alleged that the tour had interfered with his business relationships and that hostility toward him had existed for years, including after the big miss. That allegation was serious. So was the outcome. A federal court later granted summary judgment for the PGA Tour. Haney did not prove the legal claims required to win.
Public records do not establish that the PGA Tour carried out a proven vendetta against him because of his book about Tiger.
That matters. A documentary cannot turn suspicion into fact. A lawsuit is not proof by itself. An accusation, even a detailed one, remains an accusation unless evidence carries it across the line. Still, failed cases can reveal how people understand their own fall.
Haney's legal argument treated 2019 as part of a longer story. In his view, the suspension was not just about one radio segment.
It belonged to a history of tension, resentment, and closed doors after he wrote about Tiger Woods. The court did not accept the case. The feeling behind it did not disappear. That is the difficult middle. No clean villain. No clean victim. Just a respected instructor whose greatest access became his most unstable asset. Success brought Haney near Tiger. Nearness gave him authority. Authority helped him speak. Speaking changed the way people saw him. Once a coach becomes known as the man who revealed the private side of a great athlete,
Every later controversy carries an echo. Words are no longer judged alone. They arrive with baggage.
That is what made the 2019 scandal feel larger than its original frame. The official subject was the radio segment. The shadow behind it was the book. Tiger's comment gave that shadow a voice. He deserved it. No long speech was needed. The sentence worked because the audience already had a file in mind. A coach, once trusted. A memoir later condemned.
A media career built partly on the authority of having been there.
A public mistake. An old student refusing to offer grace. The pattern is not about proving hidden guilt. It is about watching the same moral pressure appear in different forms. Access, disclosure, reaction, defense, resentment. Again and again, Haney's public life after Tiger circled one question. What are you allowed to do with what you saw when people trusted you enough to let you close? In coaching, silence can be a form of service. In media, silence has little value. Haney crossed from one world into the other. That crossing made him more visible, more marketable, and more vulnerable. A sentence spoken on radio could no longer be treated as just a sentence. A book could no longer be treated as just a book. Each became part of a larger argument about judgment. To his supporters, Haney was a skilled teacher, punished too harshly. A man willing to say what others avoided, someone caught in the machinery of public outrage and institutional self-protection. To his critics, the issue was simpler and colder. The book had already revealed a willingness to use private access. The radio comments showed poor judgment. The apology did not erase the pattern.
Tiger's reaction merely confirmed what they already suspected.
Neither side owns the whole story.
The confirmed record is narrower. Haney coached Tiger Woods during a major period of his career.
Haney later published The Big Miss. Tiger publicly criticized the book. In 2019, Haney made controversial remarks about women's golf and Korean LPGA players. He apologized. SiriusXM suspended him.
Tiger said the suspension was deserved.
Haney responded. Haney sued the PGA Tour. The court ruled against him. Those are the pieces. The pressure comes from the order. Because placed side by side, they do not feel random. They feel like a public image being revised over time. A man first respected for his eye, later questioned for his mouth. At the beginning, Haney's closeness to greatness gave him credibility. Near the end of the public arc, that same closeness made his motives harder to separate from old wounds. Tiger remained a gravitational center. Even when the controversy was not about him, his presence changed the temperature. The LPGA remarks drew the suspension. Tiger's response made it personal. The lawsuit pulled the book back into the frame.
Everything returned to the same private door that Haney once walked through as a coach.
That door never fully closed. Not for Tiger, not for Haney, not for the public. What happened between them may never be reduced to one moment. The working relationship ended. The book followed. The criticism hardened. Years later, a radio controversy gave both men a reason to speak again. By then, the old rules were gone. No teacher, no student. Only two public figures
Tied together by memory, achievement, and damage.
That is why the story still feels uncomfortable. Hank Haney's achievements are real. His influence as a golf instructor cannot be erased by controversy. Tiger Woods did win during those years. Haney did occupy a serious place in the sport. A fair account has to leave that intact. But legacy is not built only from success. It is shaped by what people believe you did with their trust. For Tiger, The Big Miss appeared to cross that boundary. For Haney,
the book may have been his version of the truth.
For the public, both ideas can exist at once and still leave a bad taste. A coach can tell the truth and still be seen as disloyal.
A former player can feel betrayed and still be protecting an image.
A broadcaster can apologize and still face consequences. A lawsuit can fail and still expose resentment beneath the surface. Nothing about this story is clean.
That is why it works as a reopened file, rather than a simple scandal. The man in the first photograph is easy to understand. Hank Haney, respected instructor, standing beside greatness, helping refine one of the most famous swings in the world.
The later image is harder.
A former insider defending a book.
A suspended commentator arguing over intent. A plaintiff claiming powerful forces wanted him gone. A former coach hearing Tiger Woods say, in public, that he deserved what happened. Somewhere between those images, the teacher became something else. Not because one event destroyed him, because the past kept gaining new meaning. A private relationship became a public story. A public story became a source of conflict.
A conflict became the lens through which everything after it was judged.
At the start, Hank Haney's greatest value was being close enough to see what others could not. In the end, that closeness became the thing nobody could stop arguing about. Tiger's words still sit at the center of the file. He deserved it. At first, it sounded like a comment on a suspension. After the timeline, it sounds older than that.
The radio scandal gave Tiger a reason to speak.
The anger did not sound fresh. It sounded stored.
And that may be the part Hank Haney could never swing away from.